Today's video is sponsored by Aura Repricer. More about that later.
Reezy Resells. Follow the hustle.
What's up, guys? Welcome to today's show. I'm here with Dillon, one of the co-founders of Aura Repricer. And today we are going to talk about the importance of repricing your inventory on Amazon. And we'll touch a little bit on Aura's side of repricing, but for the most part, we're going to try to keep it in the realm of standard applicable topics, regardless of what repricer you're using, maybe what you should be looking for in a repricer, how different features work, and all of the reasoning behind understanding that repricing is the second, if not the first, most important part of your Amazon business after, or maybe before buying. What's up, Dillon? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Also excited. I met Dillon at the Miami Sellers Conference, and actually Dillon used to be a reseller and did follow my channel and learned a little bit back in the day. Tell me, let's talk about your journey.
I got started at the time I was a full-time personal trainer. I got real big into lifting, got certified.
How long ago was this?
Money with it. A little over a decade ago at this point. I graduated high school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, put off college, and then started to do training and realized I can't really scale my time. And I found myself in a cool niche, which I really loved, which is I was helping middle and high school age kids deal with like self-esteem issues, like confidence, things like that. And we were using fitness to work through those things. There's a lot of psychology to it as well.
So you started this while you were in high school?
No, this was post high school. So I had graduated
right
high
after
school. Yeah, exactly. And I loved what I did, but I wanted to make more money. And unfortunately, like the only way to make more money is to work more hours, which I was already waking up at 4 a.m. to do a 5 a.m. boot camp with a group of like 10, 12 people, would sleep for an hour after that and then train clients till 9 p.m. at night and then have to train myself. So it's like not very scalable. And to make more, I had to charge more per hour. And like, it just felt incongruent with what I was attempting to achieve. And so for me, I'm the scale guy. I love to scale things. And
yeah, that's, you can't scale it. My wife's a music teacher too. So I feel like the same thing, because you got one-to-one lessons. You can only charge so much. And so your next step is like, well, maybe I'll charge a little bit less, but have a group. But then after that, what do? You got to get someone else to teach your clients, and then
and so
you're a boss and
and I just didn't want to do that, to be honest.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's a big grind. That world is not the most profitable. Can you make it work? Of course. But like, I loved the relationships I was building and the impact I was having, but I didn't really love like the industry. And so I found out about selling on Amazon originally from a Pat Flynn podcast, which was really cool.
Shout out Pat Flynn.
Yeah. So a decade ago, it's crazy. And so I just started to explore that and kind of go into the industry a little bit. So researching FBA, Amazon, all that good stuff. Found people like you, people like the Selling family, I think was around back then. I'm not sure if they are anymore or not. And just started jumping into these Facebook groups, man. And even the content back then on YouTube and stuff was actually pretty light. It was mainly Facebook groups and blogs.
Yep. Yeah. So Facebook is the core, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, so I did
the groups
that, started to test the model. Yeah, at least the groups. And so I started to test the model and realized, oh, it's real. Left the gym, started to do RA full
What were you testing it with, books or RA?
RA. Yeah, I actually hated books. Honestly, I tried one time and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a grind.
Real quick, I want to take a second to thank Aura Repricer for sponsoring today's video and let you know how their software can help you as an Amazon seller make more money. The only thing more important than buying or sourcing inventory as an Amazon seller is how you manage the repricing of your inventory, because no matter how good the stuff is that you're buying, if you're not managing repricing properly or efficiently, you're either not making money or you're not making as much money as you could. And that's where Aura steps in. Aura is one of the best, if not the best, repricer on the entire market. They have modern AI, which is not just saying it's smart and it does some stuff. No, this is fully re-architected and built from scratch to actually utilize AI in a smart way that helps your business. It's not going to just push your price down to the lowest. Aura can not only reprice your items every 1.5 to 2 minutes on Amazon, but they also have two amazing new features. One is Maven, and that is the fully AI pricing of your items, and that can help your system to learn and understand how your competitors are pricing so that you're able to get the buy box more often and at higher prices on very competitive listings. So if you have a good product, but the competition is just repricing better than you, that item can never come up for air to get the buy box to make a sale. But with Maven detecting how your competitors are behaving, it can learn how to manipulate that, how to get you higher prices, and how to get you the buy box more often. It will help you sell those items that are having trouble selling due to competition. On top of that, they also have a new feature called Hyperdrive that can reprice your items on Amazon once every 10 seconds. Yes, you heard me correctly, once every 10 seconds. Imagine having your items repriced 5 to 6 times every minute instead of just once every 1.5 or 2 minutes, let alone the once every 15 minutes that some of you are actually getting from the repricers that you're using. Another thing that's really cool about Aura is that they have integrations with Inventory Lab, Restock Pro, and Scan Power that are able to pull your data from those softwares into Aura just to save you time so you don't have to go in there and populate your cost of goods. And most importantly, the best part of all is that Aura has recently launched an early stage program that allows all new sellers who have never used Aura and are selling under $10,000 a month to use the service that normally costs $100 a month for just $27 a month for up to 12 months. If you happen to exceed the $10,000 a month limit during your 12-month period on the early stage program, they do bump you up to $50 a month, which means they're giving you a 50% discount on the $100 a month for the next 3 months. After that, you're going to be going into the $100 a month program, but by then, you should have a flourishing business and you should be well aware of how Aura is helping you make money. They're basically writing their own paycheck and giving you such a cheap entryway to just prove to you and show to you that they will make your Amazon business better, help you make more sales, help you make sales at a higher dollar above the buy box, which is not something you see happening very often. And they're going to win you over and write their own paycheck. Honestly, it's such a great company. You'll know just by watching this talk with Dillon. He's a great dude. He's the co-founder. His energy, ethos, and the things that he values, that's, through the DNA of the whole company. It's a domestic company. There's only 6 members. They have an office in Boston, and the customer service is impeccable. They will literally help you set up your repricer, book a call with them, set up a trial, get it going today. Do not sleep. Click on the link below in the description, and you'll get an extended free trial, which is a lot longer than the basic 14-day free trial. It's so good, I'm not even allowed to tell you how long the free trial is, but click down there to sign up for the best repricer and see the results ASAP. I'll see you back in the video. We now return you to your previously scheduled program. First, what was some of your first RA trips like?
Yeah, so Target and Tuesday mornings were like the go-to. I remember I bought this like cat face doll, sold it, made like $40. And then Tuesday morning had these cool things, man. It was these like talking Spanish grandparent dolls. They had one for grandma and one for grandpa, and they had tons of them, and they're super profitable. I bought like all of them. I went every Tuesday morning I could find, got like 50 of them and resold them. But I did that and then decided I wanted to go back to school full time. I wanted to go get a college degree. I decided that's actually what I wanted. Went and got a finance degree. So I got a bachelor's degree in finance, and I wanted to be in person. I actually wanted to be in the classroom. And so I did that and realized, cool, I now don't have any time. So I had to find something that's even more scalable. I tried online arbitrage, and it's funny because back then there was like no software for online arbitrage. Like there's Keepa, certainly, but even Keepa back then is very different than Keepa today. Correct. And you basically just had Keepa, and I was horrible at it. Not great at all, I'll be frank. And so I decided, okay, it's either wholesale or private label. I decided to go the wholesale route because I realized it was sales. That's all that model is. If you understand sales as a skill set, you can do pretty well in wholesale. Being a personal trainer, a lot of personal training, succeeding in that world is also sales. Like you're having to sell somebody. Like I'm sitting down with somebody twice my age and saying I need $8,000 up front today.
When they say like sales is the most important skill in life, I agree, because I think everything is sales. Right. You know what I mean? Like, well, you have to sell
1,000%.
If you want to make a friend, you have to sell yourself to, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm a good friend. Be my friend, please.
And so I realized that, and I started to do well with wholesale. And back then there was really no education related to wholesale. There was like one course. It was not fully open all the time. And it was to be frank, kind of expensive. And so I kind of had to figure this out myself over 3 to 4 months, and I did. But then I eventually started to DM everyone on Instagram who had seemingly a larger wholesale business than I did. There was like 12 people. That's how small the industry was back then. And only one person responded, and that was my now co-founder, James. So he responded, said, yeah,
nice.
Man, like, let's hang out. Yeah, we started to jump onto a Skype call once a week and just have a conversation, kind of check in. He's like, oh, like, what do you do outside this? I was like, oh, I'm in college, full-time finance major. He's like, cool, I'm a computer science major. And so he had already been developing what is now VenDriveCRM.com, like internally. And I was like, cool. Like, I'm walking him through my process. We're like, wait, we have the same process here that we developed. He's like, yeah, I wrote code, a web app to just do that. Do you want to like combine forces and partner up? I was like, yeah, sounds awesome. Cause again, more scalable. And so we launched that. We built a Facebook group. We launched the first wholesale based Facebook group, got it up to 15,000 people. We started the first wholesale focused podcast called Wholesale Made Easy. And we just taught everything for free for years. Like literally for 2 years, I live sourced wholesale in that Facebook group for free for 2 hours every Tuesday. Like we really just committed to that. And so where people were launching courses, we said, let's give it away for free and let's launch software on top of that. That's really what we want and love and care about. And so we did that. VenDrive CRM is still around, but we didn't really get a ton of traction with it. It's a small market. We realized that we loved building software products. And we had learned so much about how to do it and how not to do it because we made all the mistakes there. And we said, okay, cool. Let's take those lessons and move forward, apply them forward. What thing should we go build that we think we could have the largest impact? Because we were seeing the impact of what we were having, right? It wasn't just the money. It was like, we have people being like, dude, what you built made my life better. I'm like, whoa, I've never had that before. That's amazing.
Yep.
So how do we scale that up? And we looked at all the tools we had used and the ones we really found frustrating, and repricing came up every single time. It was so complicated to understand, to get right. I had put it off for years because I was just so afraid of getting it wrong. It felt so expensive. The interfaces are not very intuitive. And a lot of what was basically being told was incorrect. But I didn't find that out until we started the repricing company. And I got to see our own data and be like, oh, actually, what was being recommended back then was actually completely incorrect. We need to share these things. And so, yeah, we pivoted over into repricing, launched the beta after 9 months of building, and it just got immediate traction and took off from there. We've just been building and growing ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I used Aura way back in the day. And then like more recently when we started talking, you were like, oh, that was the old Aura. And
that's
now
legacy, man.
We have the new Aura. What is new Aura all about compared to old Aura?
Yeah, so we call it old Aura legacy now because we got to a point, when you grow really fast, it's a good problem to have, but it does create some issues. Whenever you build software, you don't build it to scale to 10,000 something users because you don't know if you're going to get any traction. So that's over engineering. And so you build it just to scale well enough, and then you just know you're going to have to deal with this in the future. And also what when you're building the beta, the thing for the first time is not a lot compared to once you've been running it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so we got to a point where we're like, cool, Aura's consistently growing month to month again. We've been at this for a number of years, a lot of bug fixes, things like that. But the system's just getting to a point where if we add one new feature, it breaks something, or if we fix one bug, it introduces 2 more. It's just clearly not technically able to scale much further. And if we were to build it today, knowing what we know now, it would be fundamentally different. So we said, you know what? What's the right decision here for our users? Well, the right decision was to re-architect and rebuild it from the ground up. And that's what we wanted. And so we call it 1.0 because legacy Aura to us really was a beta. Like if you looked at the version when you were logged in, it was 0.9 something, not 1.9 something. So 1.0 for us is really what we've always wanted Aura to be at a basic level, which sounds crazy. But again, we're bootstrapped. We didn't raise money. We're a small team. Like we're fully in this. So, you got to learn how small,
how small is the team?
So right now we're 6 people going on 7. We're adding more engineers now.
And those are all domestic employees.
Yeah. We don't outsource anything. Ever.
Oh, nothing. Like we might work with virtual assistants.
No.
Wow, that's impressive.
We have worked with agencies on little things like, not little things, but like, like a Google Ads agency we've worked with before, things like that. Yeah. But we don't have virtual assistants. We don't outsource support, anything like that. Like as one of the founders, I did support full time for the first 2.5 years.
Dang.
And we're known for amazing customer support and success.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that I noticed right away And one of the reasons why I really enjoy recommending students from my private mentorship program and just in general to use Aura is because a lot of my students are older. They're not, 18, the low end is like 25 and my high end is like 55. And so if you're 45, 55, and you're not technically savvy, setting up a repricer could be literally madness. And I mean, using certain softwares, I know people would be happy to pay like a few $100s to have someone set up their repricer, maybe even 500, I don't know, maybe even 1,000, but you guys do it for free. And so it's so relieving for me to be able to say like, look, if you're technically inclined, figure it out. They got videos, you're good. If not, schedule a booking with them. And Dylan, literally the co-founder, might be the one that gets on the call with you and helps you set up your repricer. And nobody else is doing that.
Well, it's funny because it seems non-scalable, but it actually is. So when we first got started, I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do all the support. We had an advisor that said, no, that should be outsourced. It's not worth your time. Your time as a founder is worth, thousands of dollars more per hour. I go, yeah, but you're assuming that the value of what we're getting from doing support is a $10 per hour task, but it's not. It's a $10,000 per hour task because we're so new. We have so much to learn and have direct feedback to know exactly what to work on. What do people love? What do people hate? Also, here's a funny thing. If I've never ran a support team, how do I build that out if I don't even know what good or bad is? How do I even define success? What are the best practices even here? And so I went and built these out myself and learned it myself to then when we hired our first CSM, Finn, within a week, he was up and running and crushing it because I made it as easy as possible.
Yeah. And you have all the data, it's like, basically what everyone's, when you go, I love customer service myself. Like, so I could literally just like serve coffee and talk to people all day long. I love it. It's great. You know what I mean? Time flies by or whatever. But what I really love is when you go somewhere and you get serviced, and whether it's a cafe or whatever, and the person is doing their job so well that they seem like they can see the future because they know exactly what you're going to say before you say it. They like saw your hand twitch and they were like, oh yeah, you forgot your credit card. Don't forget your credit card. Or like, oh dang, I was gonna forget it. You know what I mean? Just like,
because there's so many
I'm about to drive off through the drive-through, and they're like, you might want to wait for your shake. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I did order a shake. They don't even look. They just know. Right. You know what I mean? And it's just like
1,000%. And you
I'm
can
just
train
like
for that.
when I know. And I've been a boss for a little bit, and I'm not good at it. But it's just like sometimes like I want to go. I'm at Dairy Queen and I get like this crazy good customer service. And I'm like, why do you work at Dairy Queen? Come work for me. You're amazing.
Right.
Like I'll pay you way more than Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? Just and like,
that's what I'm saying, dude.
I think that this world we live in, we need more of that. Like we have less of that, like whatever your job is, you can take pride in customer service. If you're a trash man or a bartender or a barista or like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, your job is I can make coffee at home. So I really appreciate when I go and get some, that the customer service is like a warm blanket, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's what you guys offer for people because they're like, what do I do? And you're like, don't trip. We got you.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, we've designed it in such a way that you can jump in, never talk to us and crush it and be up and running and repricing in 10 minutes if you know what you're doing. But at the same time, if you're jumping in and you're like, I'm a little overwhelmed, I'm a little cautious, I'm brand new, like I'm not sure what to do. Great. Schedule a 20-minute onboarding session. It's 20 minutes. And what's funny is every time we take somebody from overwhelmed, like, I'm not sure if this is the right decision, like, getting started, blah, 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 to they're actually repricing. They understand how to use the tool. They understand all their questions. And like, they just feel like a power user, superhuman at the end of that. And we've just got it so dialed in that I can do it in 20 minutes. And a lot of the things that seem non-scalable to other software companies in our space, I'm like, no, we've cracked that code. And honestly, it's not even difficult to do. It just takes effort and thoughtfulness to build it and design it in such a way that elicits that output.
Yeah. Well, when you give someone, a better service than they ever thought they were going to get, they're never going to leave. And guess what? Next time you open a new software tool or whatever, they're going to go to you too. It's pretty much a no-brainer because decisions cause anxiety. Do you know what I mean? Like whether you're choosing what item to buy or who to work with or whatever, it sucks. I hate having to decide. Like I wish there was only one option for everything, you know, it'd be way easier to get by.
Of course.
Obviously I appreciate options, but it's like you're becoming friends with them. You know, if my friend, like literally right now, I have my good friend who I've known since he was a baby. He has his own landscaping business and he's cutting a tree in my front yard. I didn't look up any prices. I didn't do anything. I just called my friend Jesse and said, "Hey Jesse, I got this tree. What would it cost to get this tree taken down?" And, you know, 3 days later, he's now taking it down. And, you know, he's like, usually I don't like working for friends, you know, homies always ask for deals. And I was like, no, bro, I want to pay full price, full price. You know, I want to support the people, you know, that I know that are trying to do
you're in
good
it together.
work.
Yeah, you're in it together. And I think for us, like both James and myself, my co-founder, have been Amazon sellers. So we actually understand what it's like to go 0 to 1 as a seller. Like it's actually very difficult. There's a lot of nuances. And fun fact, we actually care about what we do. We're very passionate about.
Spoiler alert.
Well, funny enough, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a capitalist. I'm a founder. I love business. I love money. Like that, sure. But like you can make money doing a lot of different things. If you're not passionate about the way you're making money, what's the point? Because you can just go pick something else. You know what I mean? And like, so for me, the outcome of being passionate and working on the right things and having an impact is that we create value. And I don't know, man, there's just something about having somebody reach out and say, "Hey, I now was able to quit my job to do this full time. And I now can spend 10, 20 hours extra a week with my kids."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Dude, I love it. I love it so much.
You know, and like, we're doing that with code and we're doing that at scale. So like, I don't think people can fathom, because like what we do is really difficult. Like let's like it is hard building a real company. It is so difficult, and it's slower than you ever want it to be.
Not even including like what the product is. Like forget about the product. Having a business with a team is hard. I know. I try to do it. I tried to make my book business into a warehouse, which required 4 to 6 employees and a forklift and insurance and all this stuff, Nick. Training, boost morale, you know, have KPI charted on the wall every day to increase productivity, and you know, buying the employees lunch to, you know, you guys doing a good job, and you know, like all of that's, it's so hard. Because I could never get over the feeling of like training was so painful for me to where like, I mean, it obviously means I suck at training, but just like I always feel like if I was training myself, it would have went well, but I'm not training myself. You know what I mean? So you have to know how to adapt to train different people and inspire them to get the work done, whether that means showing up and doing it with them or whatever. And it's a continuous thing, you know, and then people quit. You have to hire people. You have to know when it's time to fire people. You have to know that like, hey, where's the 80-20 we're wasting our time with? Like, there's a lot of stuff. And like, I remember I was putting books in the employee library, you know, like in the bathroom. And I was like putting the 4-hour work week in there because we had a lot of books as a book business, you know? And I remember I went to go put the 4-hour work week in there because I just saved good books that I knew of. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't want them to read this book. Because if they read the 4-hour work week, they're not going to want to work for me for 40 hours. So I pulled it back. And then instantly I was like, wait a minute, this is like a conflict of like my personality and like what I do online versus like, and so then I was like, I guess I can't have employees. Like either I need to like change the whole thing. And then I was like, wow, that's a lot of work, you know, like you got to read like leadership books and motivation books and like maybe take classes to be a leader. You know, it's like a completely different. And me personally, I could never get over the fact that I always just wanted to be like, move out of the way, I'll do the work. Because I could work 4 times as fast as you. You know what I mean? So I give huge props to anybody that can like grow a business, and like working for yourself and having a business is completely different than having employees that depend on you and schedules and all this stuff we were just talking about. It's gnarly.
And it is, but I could not imagine doing anything else because of the feedback that we get, because of the impact we're having. And so when people are like, oh, it's just software, I'm like, nah, dude, like, you're missing the point. It's not just software. Like, we're utilizing software to generate the outcome that is the reason why we exist. And so when we hire new people, I don't say, listen, you're coming in, you're going to work with these big brands and blah, 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 Fortune 1000. No. You're working with Sam, who just quit her job and she started this 4 months ago. and she's always wanted her own business, and now she has that, and we get to be along for the ride, support her, and make this possible for her. What we do completely matters. That's why our support is so different than anybody else. It's not a call center to me. We are so collaborative where it's like, no, I can read between the lines of what you're saying, because
Right.
I've seen all the patterns already. It's one of 8 things I've already seen. And you can literally just throw me a skew and give me nothing else. I'll tell you exactly why you think what you think is happening and how to fix it if it's a problem, or why you mistook it. Like, I can do that and you give me no context. Everybody on the team can do that. And so it's a different philosophy, you know? So when people are like, well, how is Aura different than any other repricing tool? I was like, I start with the company and the team before the product, because that does actually really matter. And it's so obvious once you experience it. And then, yeah, the product's for sure amazing, but like the team behind it is what makes that even more amazing.
I mean, I almost want to just say like borderline, like why is Aura different? Because they care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because like you guys care.
Yes. Yes. And it's not hard. What's so funny is that it doesn't take much more effort, if at all, to just care about what you're doing. And you know, so like even for us, we have an open feedback system. So feedback.goor.com, you can see our roadmap. You can go and vote and say, I really want this feature, or nobody's asked, I really want it. Great. Like, let's talk about that. I want users.
You guys do office hours every week, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
every
day,
Wednesday
what time?
from 2 p.m. Yeah, every Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. EST. It's an hour-long session. Me and Casey, who, if you're ever dealing with support, you're either talking to Casey or Finn. Casey and I jump in, and just for an hour, we say, great, what questions do you have? There's no agenda.
Where do you guys broadcast this on? YouTube, Facebook?
Everywhere. Yeah. So we have a page for it. So goor.com/early stage. Early stage is one word, put together. But yeah, we stream it to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, our groups, everything, YouTube as well. Because our whole thing is, people have questions. People want to learn. And repricing tools have never really been as educational as they should have, which is so interesting because they have the most data, right? So I mentioned when we kind of started to have this conversation, which is like, I had these preconceived notions when I was a seller that were told to me that once we started a repricing software company and we saw the data, I was like, whoa, what was being told to me is not the full context, but nobody had the full context because they weren't running repricing software companies like we were. And so I felt we had an obligation to come out and share this information and say, no, we should be educating. We should be telling you the context, telling you what works and what doesn't work. Not, nothing against anybody, but like, it's really not up to an influencer or a guru to say, here's how you should reprice. What's your sample size? It's one, it may be your group. Okay, 20 people, but that's how is that compared to 10,000? It's very different. And I think it is the responsibility of software companies who have unique data like that and unique insights to be able to share that and help their people succeed. And so we've tried to be very educational. We do as many things as we can, weekly blog posts. That's not just like filler SEO crap. It's like, no, like, here's actually how we're thinking about these things, or here's how you solve this one particular problem. And they're not like 5,000 words long, which like nobody wants to read. It's like 1,000 words. I'm like, just give me the answer. Right. So we do things like that. Office hours, we come on to podcasts and web, lives and stuff like this all the time just to teach. I don't even want to sell you anything. I just want to teach what we've learned and kind of share the passion that we have.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have your repricer dialed if you want to be successful. I mean, I always tell people they're like, in my mentorship program, people are like, well, do I really need a repricer? And I'm like, well, if you only have like 25 items listed and you're still managing it, you can manage it yourself manually for a while till you get sick of it. But you know how when you change your price and every time you go back and look at it, even if it was just 30 minutes later or less, the price changed again. So you kind of feel like a hamster in a wheel because you can't keep up with it. And the way that people are doing that is by using automated software, and also just trust the process. Trust me, sign up for Aura. If you haven't used a repricer, I can guarantee you that's going to be your best sales day ever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like 99% of the time, people are like, I signed up for a repricer and had my best sales day ever. And you know why that is because you have good inventory that you purchased that is just so competitive with other people repricing that it hasn't had a chance to come up and get the buy box at all. Or at least, you know, if you reprice even once an hour a day for 12 every hour for the 12 waking hours or whatever, it doesn't matter because someone else's automated repricer is going to come in a couple minutes later and then reprice. So guess what actually happens? 12 times a day you get 2 minutes of buy box, and your competition's getting 58 minutes of the hour, whether it's one or two or however many people. So it's extremely, extremely important. You know, prices are dynamic online. And if you're not changing your prices, you know, you're missing out on sales. And that's our whole goal, is to sell things and turn our $1 into $1.30 6-8 times a year. You know, if you can do that, you'll be extremely successful, but you're not going to be able to do it if you're not at least staying competitive with other people. So I want to talk about how fast Aura can reprice. And also just touch on the AI a little bit as well, because I know historically AI in repricing has basically just meant it's going to tank it to your lowest price. Like literally, we jokingly, for like the last 5 years, I don't think anyone has called it AI until recently. They probably called it a smart repricer or something like that. Intelligent pricing or smart pricing. And basically, we always just avoid it with the plague. Like, no, that really means dumb pricing. Don't do that, you know? So let's talk about Aura as far as how fast it is and why that matters. And then also let's touch on the AI component of Aura as well.
Yeah. So when we set to rebuild Aura from the ground up, and I really mean from the ground up, like we changed the language, we wrote it in, everything, re-architected the back end, which is like a bunch of nerdy speak, but like it does matter because when we sat down to say, well, if we were to build it today, what problems are we really solving? There's some people that believe that, you know, one repricer equals the other repricer and there's nothing you can innovate on. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that's a lack of innovation and curiosity. It's not some commodity that just like anybody can have. Like there's so much more opportunity here to build amazing things. But you have to clarify what's the problem here. And the problem for us that we had noticed over the years was complexity and speed. These are the two things that sellers are struggling with. Complexity meaning far more variables happening at one time. And how fast can you basically, you know, analyze and decide against those complexities. And so we said, okay, well, those are the two things we need to solve for here. Does AI actually help? Actually, it does, but in a certain type of way. And AI is a very broad term. I'll shelve that for a moment, talk about speed because it's a little bit easier to explain. So we found a unique way to increase speed using the new API. So for people who don't know and are not aware, we integrate with Amazon directly. They have their API for developers. What they did is they deprecated, meaning they shut down the old version everybody used and said, by this date, you have to migrate to this new one. Well, what everybody does is they just swap out basically links is what they do. And that's great. We did that for legacy, but for 1.0, we were already re-architecting it. So we said, well, let's just see what's possible here, right? What our competition can't do because nobody actually wants to re-architect because at least for us, it took us like 18 months and plenty of time and effort and money. And like, it's a big ordeal. Nobody wants to do that. There's a big risk in doing it too, by the way. We took a look and we said, okay, there's actually something here. Fun fact, we've always had instant repricing, but instant doesn't technically mean instant. Hold on. That sounds weird. It does. What instant means in the repricing world is that in our system, we are not slowing you down. We are not delaying you. So if you're paying for anything less than instant, you're basically wasting your money. You're being penalized for not paying enough. I don't really like that. So we've only ever had instant. But here's what this really means. When we submit a price change to Amazon, we instantly responded to it, but we submitted it to Amazon. It's going to take 1.5 to 2 minutes round trip for that to come back as confirmed and accepted by Amazon. So instant technically means 1.5 to 2 minutes. So what we found and what we developed is something called Hyperdrive. So for up to 50 SKUs, there's a technical engineering limit here. We can do that full round trip in less than 10 seconds. So we're talking about
only 50, but for only 50 items per seller account.
Per seller account in real time, right? So in parallel. So you choose which 50. You basically have like 50 slots, if that makes sense. And you say, cool, I want these 50 to utilize Hyperdrive. So if you think about it, that's a theoretical 12x increase in speed. And by the way,
sorry to interrupt you, but currently via API, there's no way to do that for more than 50 listings per seller. Am I hearing you correctly?
There's not.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's really cool. And here's how you interact with it, by the way. I love taking really complicated things and reducing it down to the simplest interaction for the end user. The way you enable Hyperdrive is you click a toggle. You just say, do it. And it goes, okay.
Nice.
Got you.
Nice.
That's it. Easy. Do it on your phone. We have mobile support. It's on there as
One
well.
full round trip in 10 seconds.
Less than
And
10
you're saying
seconds.
that none of your competition is
seconds.
able to do that right now.
Unless you fully re-architect and understand how we're doing it. No.
But you're just saying they haven't.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious if you're going to re-architect, because it takes a crap ton of time and a lot of changes.
Yeah, we would have heard about it, right? It wouldn't be a quiet release. It's definitely not. No, I'm guessing based on the price that you're saying, it probably was expensive to develop. It's not something that you're going to release quietly, because announcing a new update is like a free marketing. It's an easy sell.
Oh yeah.
We've
updated.
Would not
keep that stealth
Come
mode.
check us out again. We got a new slide.
Exactly. You would want to sing this off the foothills. You know what I mean? That's hyperdrive. That's speed. Okay, cool. Well, we solved half the equation. What about the other half? Complexity. This is where it gets really tough, because if you ask me, Dylan, what after having ran a repricing company for 8-9 years at this point, what's your recommended strategy? Don't have one. The reality of it, my actual advice is every single one of your SKUs should have a strategy designed for it, and the strategy should change moment by moment. Good luck. Yeah, 1,000 SKUs, 1,000 strategies. That's the reality of it. So you don't need more strategies, more rule-based strategies. This is where when people are like, oh, repricing is a commodity. No, you're not thinking, because you're just assuming everything should just be rule-based. And like, no, that's actually not the case.
Yeah, we need to think more dynamically.
We do. We need to take a step back and say, okay, well, if rule-based strategies are very fixed, very static, meaning like the settings themselves don't change, what if we could build something that could do that? Go one layer deeper, if you will. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. And so I call Maven a model, not a strategy, because that's what it does. And so anytime you're talking AI, and that is a broad term, unfortunately it gets utilized and misutilized a lot in our space, but you have to be able to clearly identify, what is it designed to do? How do we define success here? And so what we actually landed on was kind of unique, because historically what people have done is say, well, my sales went up, that's good. Or my buy box ownership percentage went up, that's good. That's how we measured success for repricing tools. It's actually a horrible way to measure success. Why? Because if I want to hack either of one of those, I just lower your prices by 10, 15, 20%. You'll get more sales and you'll get more time in the buy box. Are you happy? No, of course not. So we need to take a more nuanced approach in how we define success here. And so what we kind of developed is something called the optimal price. So it's an actual calculation. It's a real price and it fluctuates in real time. And so how we measure success with Maven is we say you are at the optimal price as often as possible. That's how we measure success. Now, what's interesting, if we think about pricing from an economics perspective, there's a lot of downward pressure because you have competition.
Yeah, you were saying that like the buy box or whatever is a bad way to, or more money, more sales is a bad way to measure it, because it's inherently easy to manipulate.
Yeah, we need a more nuanced approach as to how we define and measure success for repricing tools. And so we developed something called the optimal price. So it's an actual price, and it gets recalculated in real time, right? And this is so important because the optimal price for a toy in Q1 is very different than the optimal price for that same toy in Q4, right? And so this is that elasticity kind of concept we need, right? This dynamicness, if you will. And what's really cool about this is we're able to say, okay, well, that's how we define success, but that's only half the equation. What happens when we understand what's true now? And so this is where game theory actually comes into play. Game theory makes a ton of sense. You have like in AI, you have machine learning, all these different concepts. And we're not using game theory in the sense of like its basic algorithm. It's really conceptual, like a framework, meaning game theory just states that like there's an optimal strategy for every game we play. And if we understand the rules of the game, we understand the optimal strategy. Well, for what we're doing repricing wise, there's a clear way to win, optimal price, and there's a bunch of other people playing. That's a game, right? And so that actually makes a ton of sense. And so what we do is we actually study your competition to understand who's going to match us, who's going to beat us, who's going to fight, who do we need to be 5 pennies below instead of 1 penny below to pull the buy box. We study all that. So by doing so, we know what's true and we know where we want to go, which is that optimal price. Now we can take this information and say, what behaviors do we need to utilize to close that gap? Yep. Now, if you think about it, what's so interesting is the optimal price tends to be higher than the buy box. But that makes actually a lot of sense because economics speaking, you have a lot of competition that's going to push the price down. There's a lot of downward pressure on your price. Well, what's interesting is Maven, you can look this up on socials all day long because people show screenshots of this, which is amazing. People tend to see sales higher than the buy box. Well, where is that sale happening? At the optimal price. So Maven's able to relieve some of that pressure, that downward pressure. And so what's really cool is that's a lot, right? I just explained like a lot of things.
That's a ton.
But
and I think most people think repricers only go down too.
Right, which is so not, well, some do. Ours don't. But just like I took Hyperdrive, which is actually very technically complex, and gave you a toggle to enable to say yes or no, Maven takes a similar approach. So your rule-based strategies have anywhere from 15 to 30 settings that you as the user have to set and understand. Maven has one. How do you set your min prices? That's it. And by the way, you should be using one of our integrations. So we're importing your costs, and that setting is 20% ROI as an example. We'll auto-calculate
what integrations do you guys have? Can you run those off real quick?
Yeah. So right now we have Scan Power, Restock Pro, and IL.
Inventory
and we're looking
Lab.
at a few more. Yeah, we're looking at a few more here too in the coming months. So we got a few more conversations happening.
Real quick, if you're listening and you're wondering why that's important, because a repricer, it can't go to work if it doesn't know what you paid for an item. And that's how it keeps you from losing money on an item or ensuring that you get at least 10%, 20%, whatever rules you're setting. And so if you have items and you listed them and once they show up in Aura, they're not going to be able to be repriced until you add the cost of goods, which unfortunately, if you don't have it like in your SKU, then you're going to have to go grab it from somewhere else or fill it out manually and upload a spreadsheet or whatever, just one by one. But if you list with Inventory Lab or Scan Power or Restock Pro, those softwares know what your cost of goods are and they're able to pass it over to Aura, which is beautiful because it just saves you one step. Because that's just something you always have to do. Every time your inventory goes active at Amazon, every time you send a shipment out, you got to go, I got to make sure the outfield got their gloves ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So you're able to automate a large portion of the workload, which is good. And so Aura, we do require a minimum price because we don't want to assume it's zero. That's a horrible idea. So by design, we don't do that. So we actually won't reprice you if you don't have either a manually added or an automatically calculated minimum price, in which case we can just use your cost. And so what's cool about that is, again, Maven just has one. That's it. Right. So we took all that complexity. And this is what I love about our team and how we view things. We're taking this concept of technical leverage and saying, how do I expose you to more performance through complexity, but removing the complexity from you? Let us deal with that. We're the dorks. You get the simplified version.
We're the
of how to
dorks.
interact with it. You know what I mean?
Dorks.
Like,
Aura,
well,
we're
here's
the
a good
dorks.
example. 1,000%. We totally are. Here's a good example. The code behind ChatGPT is highly complex, but all you have to do is jump in and ask it a question. That's what we're doing with repricing. I'm saying I want to make it so complicated that we can increase performance in a way that makes sense, but you not have to deal with it. Because here's what's frustrating. If you say, Dillon, make repricing better, but you can't do this kind of model thing, blah, blah, blah. You can only use rule-based. I go, okay, cool. I got 3 options. I can add a setting, I can remove a setting, or I could change the definition of a setting. All 3 of these break your strategy and fundamentally will ruin a company. Why? Because all the settings, all 15 to 30 settings relate to one another. That's how it always works. So if I change what one means, I just broke your strategy. If I added a new setting, now they relate differently. I changed the relationship. I broke everything. So you actually can't do that. So what a lot of companies do, they go, oh, here's a new kind of strategy. You don't need another new strategy, right? Because that pushes, a lot of the understanding and the performance onto the end user who has not been running a repricing company for 8 years. And he goes, you figured it out. No, dude. We should be doing that. It's kind of like I have a Model 3. I'm a big Tesla fanboy and, I have FSD on it. So full self-driving. And for me, I don't have to understand the code. I don't have to understand if it's using neural nets or C++ code. I just go, do.
And I think that's very important. That's very important to understand is because you're the co-founder and you carry that belief or that you value that concept. That's one of your core values as a human being, not just with this company. I'm sure your co-founder is similar. I prefer to say efficiency inclined. I'm not lazy. I'm just efficiency inclined.
What did I used to say? I'm effectively lazy. I'm not lazy in the sense of like, I hate hard work. I'm lazy in the sense that I hate work that could have been given to software. and done better. It's frustrating.
Right.
It's honestly frustrating. And so, yeah, we obsess over this concept of like technical leverage. Even with everybody on the team, it was like, if software can do what you're currently doing, you're wasting your time and our time.
If everybody had that mindset, you know, to where like user UI UX is very important, you know, everything would work better. So I don't think a lot of people realize this, but there's a book I read. I've read a lot of books. Surprise, I was a big bookseller, big reader. But there's this book called The Design of Everyday Things. And I think it was written in like the 60s or 70s. It's like a popular book for design students
it's
to
like
read.
a coffee
College
table
curriculum
style book, right?
I don't know. It's like red with like a weird vase on the cover or something. But anyways, I read it a couple times actually and found it very interesting that there's this concept of if you have to read instructions to use something, especially something simple, then it wasn't designed well and it's not your fault. If you have to put a sign on the door to the building that says pull instead of push or whatever, that's a bad design. That sign is a product of you solving user interface problems with the door because people come up to your door and try to push it when they should try to pull it. Well, guess what? There's an easier way to do that. If the door can only be pushed or pulled from one side, don't put the bar all the way across the door, in the middle of the door. Put it only halfway across, and then people will grab that side and know the hinge is on the other side. Do you know what I mean? So it's just this concept of like, it's very important to design things to where people can see them and instantly know how to use them. And if they don't, you're a bad designer.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of people have this go-to assumption. They're like, I don't really care about design. It just needs to work. But what's interesting is great design, you don't notice. You feel it. And so when we surveyed users after 1.0 release, we said, what word? We did not give a word bank. We just said, give me one word for how you would describe Aura. Intuitive came up 8 out of 10 times organically. We're like, oh, that's great. So it's one of those things where a lot of people go, I don't really care, but you care once you experience it because you notice the difference. And
that's exactly when I said earlier, like, oh, it would be as if like Apple designed it. And I don't mean like it looks like Apple designed it. I mean, it feels like Apple designed it because it's intuitive and because Apple is probably one of the foremost companies that long ago put intuitiveness and just like the ability to understand the product simply at the core and the forefront of their ideology. Because guess what? Like I grew up PCs, tech repair. I still use PCs, but I got tired of fixing my own computer at one point when I got home. So I use Mac as my personal. Not only does it not break, like there's so many features and stuff that it has, or my phone or my watch that I don't even know. And like, I'll just like guess. Like one day I was in the house and I didn't know I could do this. No, I didn't know where my phone was, but I had a feeling it was in the house somewhere. Like I set it down, right? And I just yell out, "Hey Siri, where are you?" And my phone just goes, "I'm over here."
Yeah.
And I didn't know you could do that, but I thought it's worth a shot. And lo and behold, it worked. And I was like, yes, Apple. This is why I love Apple. You know what I mean?
But here's why. It's because their team uses the product. We use our product daily, and they have found the little things that users wouldn't mention because they are the exceptions. It's not going to happen 80% of the time. That might only happen to you once. But that one experience, you're like, wow, you thought about that. And so we're one of the few software companies in our space that actually has a full-time product designer on the team, like literally full-time in the Boston office. Like,
what's their name?
Entire job. Tasso.
What's his name? Tasso. Shout out Tasso.
Yeah. Tasso is the person that made everything look amazing and feel amazing. And his entire job is to do what you just said. Make it easy to use, amazing to look at. And like, I work really hand in hand with him a lot, and we will design something and put it in front of users before we even write code. Like,
I honestly, I value that quality more than like, this device can do everything. Like, I don't care if it can do everything. What I care is, can it do the thing I need right now? You know what I mean? Like little things like being able to copy on my phone and then just paste onto my MacBook.
Oh,
because they share the clipboard over Bluetooth or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Just like the most basic stuff. Or like I went on a camping retreat last year and we're doing like a nighttime walk, meditation, stargaze type thing. And the dude who was leading the thing, he's like a super Apple fanboy. And he like, I'm like, I can't see anything, but I see this like blinking light in the air. And he's like, I'm over here. And I thought it was his phone, but then I get up and it was his watch. And I was like, I didn't even know that Apple Watch had that. Like little did I know that I didn't know there was a light on the Apple Watch, which is like
Right.
seems stupid, but when you don't have your phone and like you're like, oh boom, like light, you know what I mean, just to shine on something, or even, oh, it also has blinking mode. Oh, and you can do either in full red or white to preserve your night vision. And I'm just like, what other features does these products I've been using for 10 years have that I don't know about?
Right.
You know,
and these
like,
things, they matter because, you know, for us, a big push for us internally at a company is I really want to set a better, higher standard for the quality of software in the Amazon space. The standard just has not been up to snuff. I'm sorry, it just has not. Even legacy, I will be the first to say, like, legacy, especially compared to 1.0, is not nearly good enough.
I agree. I agree with you, because I think we're starting to see the emergence of the last couple, like basically since the pandemic. I think we're starting to see, and I don't know what it is. People were bored at home and lost their job and found out that maybe the Amazon software sector could use some improvement or whatever. So all these companies that are getting purchased up by these aggregators, they're all legacy. They're all legacy, all of them, because none of them are implementing solutions to the problems with new creative ways, utilizing the most up-to-date stuff.
We need updated infrastructure. We need modern tech stacks here, and we're just not seeing that. What's actually and listen, we went through this, right? Like, we literally, after like 5 years of existing, had to burn it all down and rebuild it from the ground up. And so more and more companies are either going to have to do that, and I don't think many can afford to do that because they're not lean enough, or they're unwilling to. Or what ends up happening, what I think is more likely, is you have new people coming into the space that want to operate in the way that we operate and say, no, it should be high quality, super modern, super scalable tech. I'll just build that myself. Right. And so I think you'll start to see a transition. It would be my prediction. You know, and this is the innovator's dilemma, right? Like, if you're not kind of burning the entire company down every few years to rebuild it and say the world has changed, how do we fit in this new era? I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because things are changing rapidly.
You got to be like Madonna. Just reinvent yourself all the time.
Exactly. Hopefully not looking the same. So no, I was joking. It will change. It will change, and it will force software companies to do better. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. More options as far as, you know, good people providing good tools is great, especially if the user interface is easy to use, because that's kind of like at the core of everything, you know. Eventually, hopefully, you know, we'll be able to just say, you know, hey Siri, reprice my items. You know what I mean? Like, so make it work.
Funny enough, so this is a real live account on Aura. This is our internal demo account. So everything you can do on your computer, you can do here, including talk to support, that little blue icon. We're mobile first, but, you know, I've been testing these early. And that support is getting,
the back end of that support is actual you guys over in Boston.
Casey or Finn, or myself. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, every time. But I am playing around with, you know, I pre-ordered this little Rabbit R1 guy.
How do you like it so far?
So many issues, but I'm very excited.
I feel like it's gonna. I honestly feel like that product, and I know we're gonna go off course a little, but whatever. I feel like that product, and I'm not trying to just talk mess on stuff, but I feel like it has good intentions. There's no way the group team that designed it doesn't know that it's most likely gonna flop. But I feel like maybe it's a branding play. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a if this device category does become relevant in the future, you know, we were the first ones to do it. We have the Rabbit logo. It's orange, but I'm like, oh, okay, that thing needs a SIM card or a Wi-Fi connection. Apple's going to probably launch AGI Siri within the next 6 months to a year. And then I'm going to have that on my watch and phone. And who wants to carry another thing around? Because we're all probably 1,000%. Carrying a phone and AirPods in our pocket already, and your car keys in your wallet. So that's like 4 things. You want me to carry a 5th thing in my pocket? I'm going to have to get cargo pants. You know what I mean? So it's like, I understand the concept of wanting a device that can give you that connectivity to the internet without distracting you. Like, a phone is designed to distract you. Pick it up for one reason, forget why you picked it up, and 30 minutes later, you know what I mean? But like, you're at family board game night, phones are locked up or you're not supposed to use them. You know that vibe of like, if I pull it out, you're going to pull it out. So like, everybody stays off their phone, your board game night. But there's innately going to be something you need an answer to. Even at that level, you can just ask Alexa, or
Yeah.
Google Home or whatever. And most of those type of things can be solved. So I'm not seeing it, you know, it looks like an oversized watch. Like, can we make a rabbit that like fits on your wrist that you can pull off your wrist? And then it's, I mean, we're already wearing it. And I do also feel like glasses are the more natural, you know, they have speakers, they have microphones, they have cameras, and they don't detract from your actual, your user experience or user interface of life. You know what I mean? Like wearable tech needs to not the UI UX of human life.
Yeah. And, you know, there's companies like Brilliant Labs that are working on basically that, using AR and AI in a pair of open source glasses. I'll tell you why I got this. I like the mission behind it. Do I think it's going to flop? Probably. However, I do think there is something to be said about, as a consumer, voting with your dollars. Because I honestly just want all this on this. I do. But I have to get Apple to understand that I want this. And that I'm serious. And the fact that they pre-sold 100,000 units is saying something. And so, you know, is it cool and fun to play around with? Yeah, it is. The concept behind it is what's important to me, because we're talking about you. The reason why I brought this up is you mentioned that you want to be able to say, hey, Siri, do this thing. I 1,000% agree. I wrote a blog post in 2017, 18, literally talking about this. And I rewrote it recently because there's a lot of AI changes that weren't true back then. First and foremost, when I train this to use Aura, I want to be able to hold down the thing and say, hey, enable repricing for all my Nike stuff and assign it to Maven. And it goes, okay, cool. And it did that.
I'm guessing, I don't have a rabbit, so I'm assuming they have an API website backend. You link Aura through the API to it.
There's a train mode that I can basically go and be like, I'm going to teach you a skill. And it goes, cool, I know that skill now. That's what each skill is called, a rabbit. Now, I also pre-ordered another open source version of this called the Open Interpreter OS 1.
Okay. Because did you also get the humane pin?
I know. I think that was a horrible idea. No, that was so too far-fetched for me.
Right.
I think the fact that it runs on its own card, its own SIM card only, is like a horrible concept. And there's no train mode, right?
I think people don't realize that like the AirPods and the watch are already like AI wearable
basically
tech.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like you ever put on ChatGPT on your headphones while you're doing other stuff and just talk to it?
1,000%. Do it all the time. There
you go.
Right. And so I do think that the future of software will very much change. I think the interface will change, because we're already internally talking about generative UI, meaning you ask a question. Hey, what SKUs should I take a look at? Well, we create the UI, a table view, cards, whatever makes sense in real time. Go, these three. You go, cool, I can interact with those now. So instead of having this pre-configured, here's the dashboard and things like that, why not allow the end user to do that on the fly when they need to? Or why even have to interact? Why even have to click on, why have to hit a toggle? Toggle is pretty simple. It's one click. But what if I can even remove the last click and you just say, hey, enable Hyperdrive for all my Nike stuff? It goes, okay, cool, done. That's kind of cool. There's something to that. That's
or like,
so
hey, how many of my Hyperdrive slots are not being used right now because those items sold out? 13. Okay, can you please assign those 13 to the most competitive listings that are having trouble getting the buy box?
Right.
Done.
This is technical leverage. And I've talked about this before.
This is like back in the day, you had to be an actual nerd to use computers. Now everybody uses computers, but it's kind of in a weird way. It's just, I kind of feel like it got easier to use, but that's a broad description. I think more standard is like, there's phones and iPads now. And that's, you know what I mean? Like my aunt is not tech savvy. She can't use a computer, but I got her iPad and I was very able to teach her how to use that easily. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's we're going into the next era of that same thing, is that it's going to be even easier for those people. There's going to be I need to learn how to use technology. You just talk to it.
Because what you're doing is you're fundamentally saying, I want this outcome. Let me translate that to how to get it done in the application. What if you didn't have to do the translation? What if you could just say, I want you to do this? It goes, okay, I did that. Right. And so what phones did is it made access to technology more readily available. Most of my friends don't have laptops or computers. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm that dork where like, I couldn't imagine not having a computer, but they're like, oh, I just have my phone. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But when we thought about it, even with the Aura rebuild, we're like, oh, we have to be mobile first. Aura has to work on literally every device because everybody is so different. Fun fact, I've repriced while driving my Model 3 on the Model 3 Tesla screen. You can do that. Open up the browser, log in, and it works 1,000%.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, I want Aura to work everywhere because every person, every seller is very different in how they interact with the internet. My wife was just telling me, she's like, you exist on the internet. I go, yes. She goes, I don't. I go to the internet to complete something and then exit it. I go, no, I grew up on the internet. I hang out on the internet. And she's like, I don't do that. Whoa.
Yeah.
And she's younger than me, which is like even crazier, you know?
Yeah. Everybody's different, right?
Right.
How old are you, by the way?
Awesome. Just turned 30. Well, just turned 32. So,
32.
Yeah. So she's
I'm
younger.
I'm turning 40 this year, and I still, I got the tail end of it. So I say I grew up on the internet, but really the internet didn't come out until I was in like 6th grade. So before that, it was Apple IIe computers, monochrome monitors, 4-inch wide floppy disks, Oregon Trail. Like nothing was easy about computers, like AOL disks, Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista,
Get online.
You know what I mean? Like, it was before Google, back when you could Google and get raw results. You remember that?
I vaguely do. Funny enough, I remember the dial-up sound so well. I remember we got our first home computer and I played video games on it all the time. And like the internet was like not really a concept at that point for me.
I also wanted to tell you that I remember last time we talked, you told me about Perplexity. I've been using the hell out of that just on the free mode, but yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's like a quick Google answer result, but for every search you do. And also here's all the sources for why we gave you that so that you can look at them and see if, we're wrong or whatever. Verify.
Exactly. Yeah, it is one of, and that's what I'm saying. Like I'm bullish on AI from like that kind of applicable perspective. The devices and hardware stuff is less interesting. This is just a beautiful piece of hardware because it's designed by Teenage Engineering and it's just beautiful in person.
Teenage Engineering, is that not the company that makes little music stuff? I did not know they make the Pocket Operator, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So
that
their marketing team, I feel like dropped the ball because I've seen a lot about this Rabbit device, and not once did anyone who they paid obviously to mention their device mention that it was Teenage Engineering, because I would have been more inclined to pay attention and more interesting because I know those things are super freaking cool. Like everybody that makes beats has a Pocket Operator.
Dude. It
like
just
there's no way you don't
in the hand, you know what I mean? And like, so like, it's kind of, and I've never pre-ordered anything. I pre-ordered this and then the Open Interpreter OS1 because they're like, we're just going to build a Linux open source version of the Rabbit.
You didn't get the Yeezy pods? You weren't feeling the Yeezy pods?
No, not my style. I'm an Apple fanboy, so I'm good. But no, I play around with, AI agents and stuff like that. And that is where the world is going. I think we are, and I'm a big Trekkie, so I'm highly biased.
Also live long and prosper, my friend.
Bro, literally, I'm ready. Like yes.
You're watching Discovery right now?
Maybe. Like right this moment? Yes. No, I'm just kidding.
Season
I have been watching
3 or whatever it is. Season 3 or 4, probably the last one.
Season. I'm a next gen fanatic though. Like
I've watched it all the way through a few times. Voyager is my though.
Voyager is pretty good too. That's like, that feels a little bit more old school. But we know it's so cool. I bring that up because it does persuade me in terms of how I view technology and also being a tech founder. It gives me a lens through which to think about technology because it's not pessimistic. It's very optimistic, not like blindly like, oh, there's not going to be problems. Of course there are.
Right.
But it makes me so optimistic because they painted such a wonderful, and it was not perfect, but they painted such a wonderful version of a future reality where we as humans got amazing technical leverage. And what's so funny is they predicted things like the iPad or a tablet. They predicted
way
things like
early
natural language processing. These were not things. These were just ideas.
Did they predict it or did they usher it in?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like that's a common thing is that science fiction has been inspiring, real life engineering and science designs for a long time. Exactly.
And so when we internally as a company are thinking about building, not everybody is as into Trek as I am, of course. We're not like a Trek-based company. That's not what I'm saying. There is this sense of wonder of like, well, what if we could do it this way? And that's what I'm saying. When people are like, oh, this category of industry or software is a commodity, I'm like, that tells me how little curiosity and interest you have in what you're doing. Because in everything I've ever looked at, we've barely scratched the surface, especially in mature industries when they're like, oh, like it's not going to get better. They said that about combustion engines. And like we were making 5-mile-per-hour incremental changes. And then Tesla comes out and all of a sudden the world is completely different. You can do these things in smaller industries. And I think for us as a company at Aura, we do view what we do from the sense of wonder of like, and not just like the execution, it's like the outcome of like, well, what if users could do this? And we're like, oh my God, that'd be so cool. Like, is that technically feasible? Let's think about that, right? And so we try to find that balance between exactly what users are asking from us. Like we have that feedback.goer.com. Like there's like people want dark mode. Great. I'm going to give you dark mode eventually. You know, like we're working on that now. But then there's this more pie in the sky of just like, man, like what if we fundamentally changed how we approach everything? You know, and like that's exciting.
Like obviously, like there's a lot of possibilities coming from that standpoint because like if you know what I have listed, and you also know what price I paid for it and what I'm selling it for and also how much I'm selling, like, well, what else can you help me with? Like, I know you're supposed to do repricing, but can you tell me what I should buy more of or like what I should buy less of? Or like, you know, what stores are crushing it for me right now? What suppliers should I be focusing on more? You know, or even just like AGI, just like, do you have any advice for me on how to negotiate better deals with my suppliers, which is of course just like a chat GPT thing. But when you multiply that across internal private data from your actual store, you know, and how you're doing it, then, you know, like the reply might be, well, to increase your top line by 10%, you might try managing your cost of goods quicker because we're seeing a 3-day delay from the time you list stuff comes into Aura to when you populate it with your cost or whatever it is. Yeah. You know, and just giving you those objective truths that help you steer towards where you want to go. Cause I think that's amazing. Not like as humans, I think we're so flawed when you try to think of like how to get somewhere. We have a hard time reverse engineering and breaking it down. But instead, like the computer can say like, well, here's where you want to go. And here's all the data points we have. And then like, here's the holes. And like, if we do this, then we could do that. Or if we do this, then you should do that. You know what I mean? Like data just knows and they can speak better, at least once they can speak.
Well, you're getting access to intelligence, right? Like this is why I love the concept of agents, of co-pilots, these kind of things where it's like, you don't really have to be the expert in that thing, like a data analyst or whatever. Like let the software, let the AI do that for you and just serve you up what you need. Whether that's like, hey, what questions should I be asking that I don't know right now to ask? Here's some good ideas to consider. Okay, well, you didn't even know what questions to ask.
I think that is the best. That's the best thing. Like if you take anything from this, like you should know that that is how you should be using AI. So like to put it into perspective, I made a dinner the other night with ChatGPT on voice in my headphones the whole time. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was going to make. I had some ideas, but I was like, look, here's what I have. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's how much time I have until my wife gets home. And here's how many people I have to feed. And then it was like, cool, like gave me some ideas. And I was like, oh, cool, I can do that. And, you know, then it was like, okay, you need this. And I was like, I don't have that. What else can we do? You know what I mean? And we were just like figuring it out on the fly and it just works. You know what I mean? It's like, if you give it all the data that it needs to make the calculations, you know, like I remember I'm making the salad. It's telling me how much dressing to make. And then I was like, well, how much do I put on the salad or whatever? And it didn't know because I didn't tell it how many people I was feeding. And then I was like, by the way, I'm feeding 3 adults and a child. And then it was like, oh, for that case, you need to make sure to use this much salad. And if I wouldn't have gave it that data, I would have had like a completely drenched salad that would have been, you know, gross. But because, do you know what I mean? Like when it has all the data, it's just math and it's like so beautiful. I just can't wait till everything is like that. You know, like everything you could ever think about, however you think about it, that's how it works.
Yeah. I fantasize. I have this recurring dream where I'm getting on a hypertube, which they're apparently not working on anymore, which is sad. But basically it's like magnetic levitation, like super fast, like faster than airplanes.
300 mile per hour bullet train.
Crazy awesome, right? And I get on there and I've got my AR glasses on and I've got my AirPods and I'm like, you know, I need to get some work done. So I pull up my system, whether it's Siri, whatever, and I just say, hey, what are the top priorities right now that the things I need to be aware of? It goes, actually, okay, you know, I analyze the entire company, you know, marketing is kind of struggling in this one campaign. Okay, cool. What do you think we should do there? Well, based on, you know, deeper analysis, we should probably have a chat with the team. Cool. Can you go ahead and get that sorted out for me? And it goes, great. In the back end, it's emailing my team to be like, hey guys, you know, here's what I noticed. A full detailed analysis. Let's circle back on Wednesday, and it adds it to our calendar. And like, I didn't do any of that.
This is so close to happening. And this is also why I think that, and people might hate on me for this one, but I think Apple is going to win the AI race eventually. Obviously, Amazon is really poised too because they have so many Alexas in everyone's homes, and like all they have to do is just flip the switch and inject the code to make it smarter.
It has to be cross-platform. I think that's where Alexa and Amazon's going to struggle.
Yeah,
the fact that Apple's on your wrist, in your hand, and on your desk, and in a lot of cases in your car. I think that is the thing that's going to make them do incredibly well.
Here's the tagline: Siri just got serious.
Yes, now we're talking.
Right? You can have that for free, Apple.
5 days.
You can have that for
in 5 days. WWDC apparently they're going to announce some stuff. But no,
I mean, really also Google too, because I think those tech companies that are fully vertically integrated and have us using all different kinds of stuff. I use a lot of Google products, but I use Apple Calendar. But like, I'm well aware of like, I wish I would just like get over that and use Google Calendar, but I don't want to change. Right. But like, because it would help, it would be a little bit more integrated. It would be in my email and click to add to calendar instead of, do you know what I mean? It's like that Apple doesn't want me adding the automatic events from a Gmail to my account. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but the more it knows about you, and that's also kind of why I think Apple is really slated for this, because it's not just Siri having AI, it's that plus they know what you do on your phone, they know what you search on your phone, how you use your phone. Exactly. Like imagine being like, hey, Siri, how do I accomplish everything I've been trying to do, but have 20% reduction of screen time? I've been being a terrible human lately. What do I need to do to fix this?
Well, think about this, right? Like I use Todoist for my personal task manager. I use Reflect for all my note taking. I use Linear for our internal, projects and task management there. I want a AI to have access to all my tools, all my software, and me to say, cool, what's priority number 1 today? What do I need to work on? Help me plan it out, pull up any context I need, recommend different forms of leverage. If I can just email, Reezy and he has an answer for this because I've already had, 15 conversations with him and he's brought it up a few times in our notes. Let's just do that. You know what I mean? Like help me get more done without me having to do more, if that makes sense. And I think that's the area that gets me really excited is like tool access, context. So like, when's the last time I talked to Reezy? Like it's on my calendar, go check. What did we talk about? Did you record it? Is it in my notes? Like all this, what's going to end up happening, and you're seeing this with other AI wearables, is like passive observation. So it's like a pendant and it's just passively recording everything. And it goes, cool, I can index that. And you can ask me any question. Hey, what place did Reezy recommend that I get lunch when I'm in Cali next time? And it'll search, be like, oh, this is what he mentioned. Cool.
I mean, imagine having a conversation and mid-conversation, losing your train of thought, but your headphones detected that you were losing your train of thought and just like whispered in your ear, like you were talking about this. You know what I mean? Like, boom. You know what I mean? Like I was recording a bunch of content yesterday and I was talking with the producer while we were recording, so like some of the clips we're talking about the clips and needs to be cut out. But I was like, what was I just saying? And I was like, can you just stop the recording and play this back to me real quick? And I was like, man, that would be so cool. Obviously we have to get to a world where people are okay with being recorded all the time. Of course. But at the same time, if anyone has even a phone in your pocket, there's a chance that sound is being recorded and, sent to Big Brother, or whoever else has listed it. Like when you talk about like you need cat food and then like you get an ad for cat food, like that used to be like a conspiracy theory. Now we know it's true and it happens.
Well, now I know it's true, but just order the daggum cat food because I said I needed it. Like I don't care about security. Give me the cat food. You know what I mean? And like, but like this is all cool from the personal level, but let's tie this back to being an Amazon seller. Imagine it having access to your credit cards, your bank account, and be like, cool, I got 10 grand to spend today on OA. Great. Yep. Are there OA sourcing agents? I've been talking about this for months. That will occur. And it goes, cool, go survey everything I could purchase that would be profitable, but I got a limitation of 10 grand. And I think it's
already possible. I tried to make a custom GPT to do some stuff, and I basically ended at it saying it needed API access for Amazon, and it would like to have API access for all the sites that it was looking at too, but it was scraping sites. Possible. It was going to sites, and this was just with me literally just talking to it like this and saying, here's what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And here's what I do. Here's how I want you to help. And I mean, it almost worked, and it just got stopped at the API. So I'm like, wow, pretty soon I'm going to like open up the browser and be like, what sites are having sales right now? Boom. take me to the sales section, remove everything
Yeah.
from my view that doesn't have a 30% ROI on, you know what I mean? Like we already have the data.
You're not even going to do that. I think you're honestly going to either have a voice conversation with like a device or your computer. You're not even going to visually see it. You're going to have a conversation and be like, hey, let's go ahead and place some restock orders today. We'll see how much capital I have available. Make sure we're factoring in, we're not going to run out of capital. We got bills coming up, all that good stuff. Check, QuickBooks for invoices coming up. Okay, cool. We got 10 grand. Awesome. Let's go ahead and find some things. Make sure you optimize for ROI. I care more about that than profit margin right now. Goes, okay, cool. Boom, boom, boom. Comes back, says, here's your broken down order. Everything look good. Anything look odd? No, looks good to me. Cool. And it will learn, by the way, if you go, oh, actually, ASIN 2 actually looks a little different. Actually, there's something about this I don't like. It goes, oh, cool. I'll factor that in as a preference moving forward. You'll never see that again. And it goes, cool. Re-update. You good? Yep. Go ahead and place those orders. Let my prep center know.
What inefficiencies are in my business right now?
What
like
else you want to do?
Honestly, I think a lot of people don't realize how many of their questions could be answered by ChatGPT, but I would wager that 50% of every question people ask me, whether it's a DM or a question from my private mentorship or anything, it could probably ChatGPT could probably answer that for you. Like I jokingly just made a video the other day where it was like, the question is like, I got to 100,000. How do I get to 200,000? And it was like, this sounds really dumb, but have you considered doing more of what you're already doing? Because 90% of the time that's the answer. Everyone thinks that they get to a certain plateau, they need to reinvent themselves. And I'm like, no, you already made the hero's journey. Now you're an expert, roughly, and you know what mistakes not to make. If you switch it up, you have to go back to square one.
Yeah.
Just do more of what you're doing.
Spend 40.
Exactly. And if there's reasons why you can't spend that 40, then let's address those, because that's an easier problem to solve than saying, how do I make an extra 100,000? We're like, well, here's how you made 100. If we double that, oh, but I can't source that much. Okay, so you need to buy more products with the time you're out, or maybe you need to do OA, or you need to hire someone to help, like whatever. We get quantifiable problems that we can solve instead of just like subjective things of just like, how do we get there? How do we get to paradise? Well, where's paradise? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, there's a bunch of specific employee-based agents being built. So Relevancy, I think Relevancy.ai came out with BSR or BDR, business development rep agent. And you can run this. And actually what's funny is you give it like a person's name, email, and LinkedIn and go schedule a meeting with this person. It will email back and forth with that person. It's got access to your calendar. It will answer questions, write the cold email. And what you end up with is a email or a calendar event on your calendar to sell that person. So how is that very much different than getting wholesale relationships? Now it's email. I think phone calls tend to be better, but okay, let's assume we're going to get the,
email still works though, even though it's not the best, but
if it doesn't cost us anything and I can scale this out and let AI handle all of it, I just go, here's 5,000 brands.
Right.
Okay.
And it has to get better. It's going to get smarter over time and get better at it.
And oh, by the way, there are AI models that can actually call and go back and forth via voice on the phone.
Right. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but the email thing is fully already a go.
Oh, we're there. It's just you have to be technical enough to build it, implement everything. But like the technical feasibility of can you do it? Yes. I showed my team last week during our all hands. We do a lunch and learn every week. So typically mine's on AI. I took 5 samples of audio of me speaking and encoded my voice with AI using 11 Labs. And then the team was like, oh, it'd be cool if they could do it in a different language. I said, okay, which one? Well, Toss is Greek. He said, Greek. I go, okay, cool. So I redubbed it in Greek. I go, here's me speaking Greek. And it was literally my voice speaking
Still
Greek.
your voice. Yeah, exactly.
Still my voice.
I don't think 11 Labs does it, but there's other tools that can take literally a static picture of you and then make a video of you speaking.
I've done that.
And it looks pretty damn natural with blinking and pauses or whatever. You got to feed it the audio. So the audio is the audio, but it will take a picture and match it up. And I mean,
match your lips to the audio, but right. And
it's so insane.
When you take everything we do as sellers and you break it down into its general standard components, sending email, making phone calls, analyzing SKU lists.
Data. Yeah.
Guys, AI can do this already. It's just not a product you pay $50 a month to be able to do that perfectly for you. But you can go and build these things. Like I'm not a software engineer. I can code a bit for sure. Like I'm technically inclined. So I play around with a lot of this stuff. So I get to see where things are at. But I'm telling you, like, if you're not paying attention to how things are changing, you're really going to get left behind here. And it's a very optimistic perspective I have on it. I think it's really cool because it means one individual can do 10 times the revenue in 2 years than they can do today with 10 VAs.
Yep. That's insane.
Think about what that does to somebody's life, to somebody's family.
Also think about like when you mentioned life and family, we're all basically immortal now. I mean, not like us exactly, but like especially people like me and you who have recorded a lot of video of us and it's on the internet. Right. There's a lot of video of us. There's a lot of photos. There's a lot of audio samples. There's a lot of data. You know what I mean? If things that I've written, you know what I mean? To the point where like our great grandkids will be able to just pull up the hologram of us and talk to us. Like literally it will be an agent that is coded to be us based on our data and act exactly like us. And our distant relatives down the line, hundreds of years, will be able to interact with us. That's like gonna happen. It's pretty much already here, which is wild.
Crazy, man. It's so exciting though, because that means a lot of different things. But it means, you know, the people who, you know, Bill Campbell's an amazing CEO coach guy. And, you know, I couldn't afford him, but if somebody spun him up as an AI and I could just be like, hey man, I got a business question, but it's trained on everything he's ever known. And like, you could do this now, right? Like,
I mean, like you could already do it right now just by, you could literally do it just by making a new chat and saying, pretend you're this person. You're not going to get as good results as if you restrict it to be fed off of the data. You know what I mean? Like imagine I downloaded the transcript of every YouTube video I've ever made, put it into a custom GPT and was like, this is AI Reezy chatbot. Just ask it whatever you need to know about Amazon and it will respond. It will sound like I'm doing it and it will give you answers based on what I have. And if it doesn't have it, it will go get it, but it will still make it seamless to seem like you're actually talking to me.
Yeah. But think about this. What if you could hire that avatar? Right?
Oh,
not just
I
like,
see what you're saying.
I can talk to it. What if I'm like, oh, this is the best PPC specialist I've ever, like, that's ever existed. I don't know, it's a bad example, but roll with me here. I cannot afford to hire that person indirectly, but what they've been smart, they said, I'll license out my likeness and my knowledge. And so it's, you know, a quarter of the price and you have access to me, all my knowledge that's downloadable. And I'm going to connect to your system so I understand your actual data, not just what you're telling me. Because there's going to be things that, again, you're not even going to know to tell me.
And here's the kicker too. You can do it without worrying about compromising your security, because I could be my AI likeness will be deployed to your system like inside of a walled garden.
Closed.
Yeah, exactly. So where like it has the data, it accesses it, but we don't store it on our side, and like it's essentially dispatched to you. That's like a, you know what I mean? And then that version of Dillon or Reezy that works with you will ultimately evolve to be a little bit different than the general version. You know what I mean? Because it's going to now be based on what you're feeding it.
Yeah, well, what you're feeding it, its experience with you. So it's like you actually worked with Reezy or Dillon for like 6 months, and like there's all this context that got built up and understanding, right? And like, imagine that. And yeah, this is completely sci-fi sounding, but the reality is that we're not terribly far off from.
No, it's already here. Yeah, it's already here. They're just segmented. It just is like this company, 11 Labs does voice. Right. This company will do the face mapping, like blah, 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 blah. This ChatGPT API for the communication, like blah, 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 blah. But the more commoditized, and I don't want to use that word, but the more common, I guess, these type of services become, the more we're going to see either people aggregating them or just like companies, like look at ChatGPT was text only, right? Now they integrated DALL-E and they could do images.
There's video now too.
Yeah, exactly. And so once it's all together, you know what I mean? It's coming all together for sure. You know what I mean? It's not going to
have the Lego pieces.
Yeah, everything is going to be AI, and it's going to be pretty similar for most. No one's going to care what they're using. It's going to be the same.
And this is why I like to talk about AI, right? And like, what does this have to do with repricing? Like, this is how we think. This is the things that get us excited in the morning, because it's like, how do we close the gap between what has always been and what could be? And that's our challenge as a company and as founders and as a team. And honestly, like, it's so exhilarating because there is so much innovation to be had here that we haven't even begun to ask the right questions yet, because we haven't had the capacity yet.
I mean, with AI for pricing, there's so much opportunity, because like, it's not just like, let me lower my price or let me raise my price or whatever. It's like, how is this competitor behaving, and how likely is their repricer behaving, or maybe even what repricer do we think they're using, and let's catalog that information and be like, oh, they're chasing us. So like, let's drop the price because we know sales aren't coming in at night. Let's drop the price
Right.
like ridiculously at night. Then they follow us stupidly when there's no actual action on the buy box. And then before the sun comes up, we raise our price back up and leave them in the dust to where they sell for pennies and we're the next offer. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that is stuff you can't really do as a human or predict or like analyze. But if you're telling me you know what my competition's doing and you can make them sell out, let's make them sell out so that I don't have competition tomorrow and I can raise my price higher. Right? Like that's insane. And that's like, that's what AI for repricing is giving us is currently already right now.
Right. Like that's the thing, right? We're already there. And it's so cool. It's like go on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, whatever, search for Aura and see the screenshots of people being like, I'm using Maven, doing less work. And I just got a sale $30 higher than the buy box and $30 higher than the sale I got 30 minutes ago. Like it's time and time again. And what's so cool about this, again, it's like the Tesla model, like FSD, like I can wake up. This happened yesterday. They're like, hey, there's an update to the software. I go, cool, do it. I'm sitting on the couch, do it. And this morning it's better. I didn't do anything. I didn't have to learn anything. Software's just better. Model's better. Why can't your repricing tool be the same way? Right.
That makes sense.
And so it's just a very different perspective. And I know a lot of people are struggling with that kind of transition of how to think about repricing in this new world. Cause they're like, well, what's the difference? It's like, honestly, everything, like how we're approaching this, how we're thinking about it is fundamentally different. And once you experience it, you're like, whoa, this is totally different. You know, like what I expected it to do versus what it did is not the same, but what it did was seem counterintuitive, but actually worked wonderfully.
It's also getting smarter and smarter, right? Is Maven getting smarter and smarter?
Within reason, yes. The way we do this is when we first come onto a listing, we don't have a lot of the understanding of what's true now. So we have to learn that. So if it's really like a stale, slow listing, it's going to take a few days. If it's really competitive, it could take a few hours. So we'll learn everyone. But on the ongoing side, what we'll do is we'll actually forget the profile of every one of your competitors. So we'll relearn it because every one of your sellers are in a different life cycle of their inventory, right? Different stage. Some are going to be very conservative right now. Some are more aggressive, but that changes over time.
It's super dynamic. It's not per seller and it's not per product. That it's a multiple of product, seller, and time, and also their stock levels or whatever. Yeah. 1000%.
So just because you're matching me today doesn't mean you're going to match me in 2 weeks. And so I need to be able to adapt to that as real time as possible. So we'll intentionally do that. So it gets smarter from that perspective. What we're not doing is machine learning. I really don't think that's applicable to what we do. Machine learning, you would be consistently learning on the new data, factoring it back into the model. That's really good for predicting the price. But for what we do, that actually, in my opinion, doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're doing like private label pricing, I think there's something to be said about that.
So you're saying
model.
it is some machine learning on a segmented basis, like on a per product, per user, per competition scenario, and then the next thing it doesn't use that data for the next decision.
Not really. But it did learn complex.
But if it's learning how to compete against your competitor in any scenario, that's machine learning, right?
Not necessarily. No, it depends on how you want to define it. If it's like, well, is the machine learning? Well, yeah, but is it the subject of machine learning in the way that it is technically done? No, because that doesn't make sense. Because again, AI is a huge umbrella, and then you got neural networks, you got deep learning, reinforcement learning, you got RAG, which is a new thing now. It's RAG. There's all kinds of stuff in that world. And so there are things that are like, yes, technically AI, but does it actually add value? And is it applicable to what we do here? So a good example, everybody knows ChatGPT. That's AI, right? Well, yes, but technically it's a large language model. Well, could you build repricing with a large language model? Well, no. Well, some people will say, well, then you can't build AI with repricing. Well, of course you can. Just you have to use a different application of AI. That's where it's tough for the end consumer because they're like, I keep hearing AI, but what the hell does it mean?
Well, yeah, and also just to break it down, like ChatGPT does make images or I guess videos now too or whatever, but it uses large language model to interface. That's its main interface and how it operates. But once you communicate with it like that and then it generates an image, it's doing it in a different way. And I believe that's maybe like a diffusion model or something.
Correct. Yeah, you have transformers, diffusion, all these things. And this is why it's really tough right now for sellers to understand what's real and what's not real. That's why I try not to just be like, we have AI and it's great. It's like, well, let me explain how it works as best as I can. I can't give any IP away, of course. But if you just conceptually understand what is happening, it helps a ton, right? Like we're actually running experiments to understand what's true. We're storing that in memory. We're dynamically deciding on a bunch of different things and then saying, great, based on what is true here, what decision do I need to make? What behaviors do I utilize to close that gap? So that's what we're utilizing. That's like the, if you had to like kind of draw it on paper, that's the AI. But what we're not doing is like a machine learning model. Like you actually don't need a machine learning model specifically for what we do. Just like you don't need a large language model specifically for what we do. That's where it gets really tough in the tech world is, again, AI is very broad, and in certain use cases, certain model types and approaches are incredibly impactful and others are completely useless.
That makes sense. You don't want to over engineer it or whatever.
Well, honestly, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like, that's like me saying, well, I put machine learning in here. Well, to do what? Well, it makes it better. Well, how? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, was machine learning actually better? Could we actually have used a transformer model, which is what large language models are built on top of, to get a better result? And so
right. It's kind of like you could give ChatGPT a lot of data about your business, and it can talk to you and it can analyze the words and the data, but it analyzes the words far better than the data. Yeah. And it's not designed to do math. You know what I mean? And so using a form of AI that is designed to use math and make charts and predict stuff is going to get you far better results if that's, the type of thing that you're going after, but if you want to know, like, how do I make dinner? How do I have a conversation with someone who has this belief, or like, how do I say Maven how do I say this, without, coming across, you know what I mean? That's language, right? I know we're like super deep into the weeds or whatever, but I want to talk about the early stage program, because I believe that I know actually that it's creating a huge opportunity for smaller sellers to actually have a really quality repricer, because in the past, let's be real, like Aura is $100 a month, and for most people who are just getting started, that's hefty to think that they're going to pay $1,200 a year. I think that's how most people look at it. Obviously, it's worth it and brings you the results, but it seemed a little inaccessible. And so people historically have probably used more inferior repricers just because the price was a lot cheaper. And so that's why I'm really excited about the early stage program. Just tell me about the early stage program.
Yeah. So we want to make things more accessible and really in two ways. So I want AI to be accessible. So we're talking about Maven a lot, right? Historically, real good, smart, intelligent, whatever you want to call them, repricing tools that we're actually doing correctly just charge a lot. There's a big premium put on that. And I think we're at a point now with the technology where that shouldn't be the case. It should be readily accessible. So we made Maven and Hyperdrive and all these advanced features available in every single tier, because our users said, we don't care how much I'm paying you. I still want access to it because it's cool. Yeah, I kind of get that. I'd be that guy too. So making technology accessible to everyone is one thing. The other thing is just giving newer sellers a leg up, right? Making modern software accessible to them. And when we looked at our data, we're like, man, who's the biggest segment of sellers that leave us, that churn? People doing less than 10K. Why? We chart every single reason. Well, cost. Interesting. Makes sense, actually. Makes a ton of sense. If you're doing less than 10 grand a month and $97 a month is our starting tier, that's actually really a hard sell from a cash flow perspective. So we kind of took a step back and said, well, we've always been able to get access to startup programs in the software that we use because we're a software startup company. And all it is, hey, you're brand new, prove your revenue. If you're less than X, you get a steep discount for some period of time because we want you to utilize us as early as possible, but you're just not there yet. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So we said, why don't we just do the same? Let's create an early stage program and let's make it super simple. Here's how you qualify. You're not using Aura currently and you're doing less than 10 grand a month in revenue. That's it. You apply. If you go to /pricing, it's there. You can link out to it. It's a simple application. It takes hardly any time. And what the program is, I call it a program, not a tier, because it's not something you stay on forever. So if you qualified, you get accepted, you basically get access to all the cutting edge stuff. Hyperdrive, Maven, mobile. Our team will personally onboard you. We don't check how much you're paying us before we do that. We just do it. You get access to all that for up to 12 months for $27 a month. So dramatically cheaper. And check this out. If you grow past the 10K per month within that 12-month program, we'll give you a 50% discount on the first 3 months of the tier you grow into. So we're really kind of smoothing out that cost curve there, right? So even if you go from 27 to 97, our essential tier, you're not paying 97 for the first 3 months. We'll smooth it out for you. Just because, again, we've been sellers. I know what it's like. I know how $100 can feel like a ton. But when we think about it, if this didn't cost anything, if it was free, when would you recommend somebody to get started using a repricing tool? Immediately, day zero, right? yesterday. Exactly.
-1.
Exactly. So there is a cost because it costs us something to support people. But how do we get that in a really good position to where people can get started with modern repricing, not just the cheapest? Cheapest is not good. Modern software that they can stay with for an extended period of time. So as they are growing, they're not having to switch tools, learn something new, all these different things. Because we had a lot of people that would go to a cheaper option, one of our competitors, and come back or come to us 3-6 months later and be like, I wish I didn't have to have gone to them first and have dealt with that friction and frustration, because dealing with you guys has been dramatically easier and more enjoyable. And I'm seeing better performance. I wish I could have just gotten started here, but 97 was just a hard sell. Like, yeah, totally.
Dealing with Dillon.
Yeah, dealing with Dillon, man.
it's a much better experience.
Yeah, I just wanted to be simple.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It's a wonderful opportunity for sellers, but also from a marketing standpoint, from your company, you're like, and also I feel as an actual customer myself, I feel that it's like, you're like, look, just give us enough money to cover our costs, and we'll prove to you that we'll write our own paycheck. Yeah, the money that you pay us every month is not coming out of your pocket. We are going to generate that money for you.
I promise you, if you schedule an onboarding session, which is 20 minutes, we've already lost money on you. And I'm happy to do so every single time, because we'll make it up on the back end. You know what I mean? Like, we think long-term about this. I mean, I think you have to have a long-term perspective.
Which is great as a seller, because you want the people you do business with to be invested in your success long-term. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, if I know you're only going to make money, if I make money, let's make money.
Right. That's
you know
what I mean?
Exactly.
Yes, 1,000%.
And that's cool, always right? Better like that.
We have a 14-day ungated trial. Ungated meaning we don't ask for a credit card up front. So when people are like, how do I know it's going to work? I'm not going to tell you it's going to work. I'm not going to sell you on anything. We don't do sales here.
Right.
So why don't you go start a 14-day trial, get onboarded. And by the way, if we can't onboard you until day 8 of your 14-day trial, we'll reset the trial completely. Don't worry about it. And then you tell me. And if it doesn't work out for you, great. Be like, I'm not giving you money. Bye. Perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what's so nice is like, I'm trying to design it so there's so little friction for users to allow us to help them grow.
Right.
And that's super important.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're a new user and you need a repricer because you haven't set one up yet, or you're fed up with the one you're currently using, come on over to Aura. The water's warm. They'll take care of you. Also, if you want to sign up right now, there is a link in the description. And if you use that link, my link, you're going to get an extended free trial, longer than the normal free trial. I'm not allowed to tell you how long it is, but trust me, you're going to enjoy it. So what's on the horizon? You got anything on the horizon that you want to share with us regarding, like what interesting things are going on down the line? Because sometimes I feel like as a customer, you're like, okay, it's great, but like what's happening next? And then you're like, I want to be around for that,
Yeah, for sure. So, there's a lot of things I can't talk about because we're stealth mode on some of the bigger stuff, but, smaller stuff going from North America to all 20 marketplaces. We've got the currency conversion system already dialed in. It's just dealing with the translation on those reports, and the API is kind of time consuming. That'll make that really easy for everyone. So I think that because we have a lot of people in the UK, EU that want to use us that are just like, I need it, So that's one thing.
Those are terribly underserved marketplaces.
Exactly. 1,000%. So there's one thing right there, a lot of quality of life stuff. We talked about design, like funny enough, the most requested thing is dark mode. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because a lot of sellers are working at night and they want to be able to not be blinded. I'm like, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So you got stuff like that. But then I think Walmart's getting really interesting in the space. I think there's a lot of demand shifting over to Walmart from the seller side. And so there's going to be a huge need for software over there. So, whether that's analytics, repricing, basically your whole tool stack has to get ported over. And I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to have your newer companies that are going to establish themselves there really fast and then port themselves over to Amazon and kind of go the inverse route because it's easier. Mm-hmm. That's one prediction I have. But I think for us, that's an area that our users are talking a lot about, and something we're really talking internally about as well, is just how is Walmart developing?
No real details yet, but just you got your eye on the ball.
Yeah, there's a lot happening behind the scenes that I just can't talk about, but that's definitely like something that is top of mind right now. All the stuff we've been talking here and there about, circles around what we're talking about internally.
Right.
I'll say that.
Connect the
'Cause
dots.
connect the dots is what I'll say. I hate to be a tease, but there's just a lot of things I can't quite share yet.
You got to be mysterious in this world a little bit.
You
Just
do,
a little bit. You know
you
what I
do.
mean? If you put you don't want to put all your cards on the table. You know what I mean? Just
Exactly.
keep a little bit of a reserve. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add about repricing in general or about Aura before we head out?
Honestly, I think we covered quite a lot of it. My biggest thing is, don't take my word for it. I don't want to sit here and sell you on anything. Like, go try other tools too. Go ask their support teams questions. Go actually test everything we're talking about here and make your own decision. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm highly biased. I build a company. If what I'm saying is true and you can actually go and validate it, which you can, it's going to make your decision easier. Because you mentioned earlier in our conversation, it's really tough making decisions. And I 1000% agree with that. And so I don't want it to feel like a huge lift for a lot of sellers, especially newer sellers. Go test a few things, and if you have any questions that you're just like, man, like I'm really on the fence here, but I have some burning questions. Great. Reach out to our support, ask us questions. You can email me directly, by the way, Dillon@goaura.com, DILLON@goaura.com. I don't have an assistant who's going to check my email. It's literally going to be me. So give me some time to respond.
Just to put the customer service into perspective I've been doing this, when did Aura start? First of all,
we launched the beta December 2018.
Okay, so I started doing YouTube in 2016, so a couple years before then, but relatively, same timeline. In the last 6 years, I have never heard a single person say anything bad about Aura, including Aura Legacy, Aura New, like literally and that is kind of odd because people talk about anything they can talk about, and I just feel like
that's so true.
Maybe Aura just has literally no chinks in their armor. Like there's just nothing, you know what I mean? Like, there's not much, unless you're just like, I hate Dillon, he's ugly. And we're like, what the hell does that have to do with the repricer? You know what I mean? Like, no, not that you are. You're quite handsome.
No, it's funny. I don't think any company's perfect. We're certainly not. I think we have still a long ways to go. But what I will say is we care very deeply about what we do and we're very thoughtful about it. And I think we're doing a great job, but we're still not done. But yeah, I would say my piece of advice, go test a bunch of tools. If you're looking for something, reach out to our support team, be like, hey, I want to schedule an onboarding session. Like, I want to see what this is about. I want you to help me get up and running, understand the best practices, make it work. We'll do that before you even give us a credit card. Like, we have no problem with that. I want people to succeed. And I want your feedback too. If you jump in and you hate it, cool. Email me, tell me why, like, let's make it better if that's the case. If you jump in and you loved it, let me know. I love getting these. I got one yesterday where, we had a pretty big name person jump in and they're like, yeah, this is going to double my sales. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then they sent me a screenshot the next day of us doubling their sales. It's like, oh, it's actually pretty cool.
Hell yeah. That's so
it's
awesome.
actually real.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's the weirdest thing, right? Like growing up, I didn't have a ton of stuff. And so I was pretty selfish. Now I kind of like through helping others, I've learned, what that's like. And it's hard to quantify, like when you're not starving and you're kind of comfortable, you might forget about how amazing that is or how helpful it is. But then you help someone who is in a lesser position, which is might be similar to where you may have been in the past. And you get that same feeling that you got from when you fixed it for yourself. But you can't get that feeling anymore because you're comfortable. Do you know what I mean? So it's very addictive to help people. And I also enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Our whole team has that addiction. We hire for it. So yeah, that's all I would say. But listen, man, I appreciate you having us on. We love to geek. I'm glad we got to go down some rabbit holes on the AI front. I'm always open to that conversation. So I appreciate that.
Rabbit holes. That's
the
funny.
Rabbit hole, of course.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. I mean, this was super exciting. I appreciate you, giving me the chance to come on here and geek with you a bit.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, I want to run back the Aura office hours. What days is that?
That's on Wednesdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. EST.
Eastern time, 2 to 3 p.m. on your YouTube channel, Facebook, etc.
Yep, exactly.
Also, and where are you guys mostly active at? On your blog, Twitter?
Yeah, mainly Twitter and our blog. So we do a Monday blog every single week, and then Twitter we're pretty active on there. And emails. Cool. We email our users quite a bit. without being like annoying, obviously, but wherever we can let users know, hey, we're going to be here, we're speaking there, we're doing this thing, we want to do that as well.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for creating an awesome software company that's helping so many sellers. And I mean, I'm not just saying it to say it, but like I hear it from people. Like it's such a good feeling for someone like me who has a mentorship program to be able to send people over and know you're going to take care of them. And then they come back and they're like, those guys are just so great. You know what I mean? So awesome. Thank you so much for that, man.
No, hey, listen, I appreciate the kind words. We'll keep getting better. That's for sure.
Tell the team I really appreciate everyone's hard work.
Will do.
Awesome. Have a great day, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching today's video. And if this all was a little bit over your head and you're just considering getting into Amazon and you need help with that, please click below to grab a copy of my free intro to Amazon course that will give you all the information you need to get started on Amazon and to make your first $10,000 in sales. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.